Well, a hearty good evening to everyone, and thanks so much for being here. What a great crowd. We certainly do appreciate your attendance tonight. This is Monday, April 2nd, and this is your City Council. And we would like to start with a roll call of our City Council tonight.
Council members Brown?
Here.
Entenmann?
Present.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Here.
Karski?
Here.
Rolfing?
Present.
Aguilar?
Here.
Anderson?
Here.
As is almost always the case, we have the entire City Council here again tonight representing all of you. Every City Council meeting, we start with an invocation. And tonight we're very, very pleased to have Dr. Cliff Sims with the Empire Baptist Temple here tonight. We'd ask you to stand while Dr. Sims gives us that invocation. And then afterwards, remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Sims.
Let's pray. Our Father, we do thank you tonight for your many blessings. Lord, I thank you for the country you've allowed us to live in. Lord, I thank you for the state of South Dakota. And Lord, the many ways that you've blessed our state. Lord, thank you for the economy you've given us. Thank you for the freedoms that we have. And Lord, we pray tonight for our City Council. We pray for each of the members to have your wisdom tonight. Pray for our mayor that you might direct him as well. Continue to oversee the business of our city. And Lord, we pray tonight also for our members of the military. Lord, we think of them, and Lord, especially those from the state of South Dakota and some right here from our community. Lord, we ask that you would keep those men and women out of harm's way. We thank you for their willingness to serve and to defend our freedoms. And Lord, again, we ask that you would bless us here tonight, that you would direct the meeting, that you would guide each matter of business that needs to be handled this evening. Father, we pray these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sure. Hey, there.
Thank you very much. Again, great crowd tonight. Thank you so much. And this is a special one tonight. Is Allison Albine here? Allison, welcome. We have a number of folks who'd like to come forward. Please come forward. Young people, come. Okay. Yes. While Allison is getting everybody organized here, this is a special proclamation. And what I'm going to start is by reading the proclamation, and then the young people that are here tonight have a special message for all of you as well. Whereas Kids for Peace provides a platform for young people to actively engage in socially conscious leadership, community service, arts, environmental stewardship, and global friendship. Whereas Kids for Peace has over 100 interconnected chapters around the world, and through Kids for Peace projects and programs, youth of all socioeconomic backgrounds are empowered to become part of positive solutions leading to a healthy and harmonious planet. Whereas Kids for Peace believes that if everyone followed the Peace Pledge, we would have a world of kindness, respect, unity, and love. By getting the Peace Pledge into our schools, communities, and out to the world, they can create the change. Whereas Kids for Peace members from all over the United States will unite to present the Peace Pledge to Congress, as well as other important sites throughout Washington, D.C., including major memorials, the U.S. Holocaust Museum, the Kenyan Embassy, the U.S. Institute of Peace, a homeless shelter, and the White House. Now, therefore I, Mike Huther, Mayor of the City of Sioux Falls, do hereby proclaim March 6, 2012 as Peace Pledge Day in Sioux Falls, and do hereby applaud Kids for Peace commitment to uplifting our world through love and action by sharing the Peace Pledge with Congress and beyond. I'd now like to present the chapter leader, Allison Alvine, to the City of Sioux Falls, and she'll introduce her team with you tonight. Allison, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Huther, so much. We're so happy to be here. This is some of our kids from our Sioux Falls chapter, and they have a few things that they would like to say quickly.
Very good.
And then we'll say our peace pledge.
Thank you.
Okay. You ready? Okay. Do you want me to do it? Do you want me to say it? Or do you want Owen? Here, Andy. You want to do it? Just this first one.
Actually, I'm going to say it.
Okay.
I want to say that. So, what do I say?
Right here. Hello, Sioux Falls City Council.
Hello, Sioux Falls City Council. We are members of Kids for Peace Sioux Falls, and we want to thank you for inviting us to the City Council meeting tonight.
Pass it down. Bye-bye.
We want to thank you, Mayor Huther, for the great proclamation. We also want to thank you and the whole City Council for all that you do to make our city of Sioux Falls such an awesome place to live.
Some of us recently returned from Washington, D.C. We were able to thank many of our national leaders for all the things that they do for our country.
We traveled around Washington, D.C. for 5 days, spreading our message of peace, compassion, gratitude, and unity. We are proud to share our peace pledge with our nation's leaders and ask them to strive to follow it every day in everything they do. This is what we have decided to do.
We would like to share a peace pledge with you now, and we hope that you will share it with others and that you will follow it too. Are you ready? Let's do it.
I pledge to use my words to speak in a kind way. I pledge to help others as I go throughout my day. I pledge to care for our earth with my healing heart and hands. I pledge to respect people in each and every land. I pledge to join together as we unite the big and small. I pledge to do my part to create peace for one and all.
Well, Allison and team, thank you so much. That's going to be a memorable one for this City Council, I know. We'll now continue on with tonight's City Council meeting with our consent agenda. Council, any changes to tonight's consent agenda?
Move approval, Aguilar.
Mr. Mayor, I need to step out on this, please.
Sure. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, second.
There has been a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda. It was seconded by Councilor Karski, and Councilor Entman has excused himself for this particular topic. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Brown,
Yes.
Erpenbach. Yes. Jamison.
Yes.
Karski.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Aguilar.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Thank you. That has passed 7-0. We'll now move on to tonight's regular agenda. Council, any changes or to tonight's regular agenda?
Move approval, Erpenbach.
Second, Jamison.
It's been a motion to approve by Councilor Urbanbach, seconded by Councilor Jamison. If there is no discussion, roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Brown,
Yes.
Intiman.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Jamison.
Yes.
Karski.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Aguilar.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Folks, this is an opportunity for the public to engage the council as well. We also realize that there are some folks here who are going to comment on some topics later on in the agenda. What we'd like you to do is if there's a topic that's just general in nature, that's not about a specific topic later on, just come forward now and just introduce yourself, please, to the team up here. And we would ask you to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Welcome, Scott.
How are you doing?
Doing great, thank you.
Good. Wanted to talk about something
Scott, could you just introduce yourself?
Oh, yeah. Scott Harrisman, Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Thank you.
I want to talk about something that's been getting a lot of coverage in some of the council candidate forums and stuff. It's the garbage hauler regulation. Ironically, I disagree with both sides on the thing. On one side says we shouldn't have a lot of regulation. I kind of agree with that. The other side says we should have regulation and should recycle. My opinion on the matter of, I had a really good friend who recently moved away who worked in the recycling business here in Sioux Falls. She told me constantly the biggest problem that the city has with garbage haulers isn't regulation, it's education. And teaching the garbage haulers that they can actually make money from recycling. And their resistance to change. We all know that if you make something illegal, that doesn't necessarily mean people stop doing it. And I believe the city should step forward and really begin to educate garbage haulers on the benefits of recycling and getting that percentage higher than 20%. I actually think 20% is kind of low. But telling them that they have to do something is the wrong approach. I just totally disagree with that. I think that the regulations that this city has put up to private business over the last few years is just horrendous. And I think that you could spend that money and that enforcement into educating the garbage haulers, and it would be much more wisely spent money and time. Of course, I don't sit up here. I'm not the one that's going to be able to make that decision, but making a law to do that is just, it's silly. Another thing is a lot of people wonder why we allow cities from out of Sioux Falls to dump at our landfill. As a taxpayer, I pay to upkeep that landfill, and I'm wondering why we let towns outside use it. It just seems kind of weird to me. They should just have their own landfills, in my opinion, but whatever. That's all.
Scott, good job. Thank you very much. Folks, is there anybody else who wanted to engage the council now? Please come forward. Welcome. Thank you. Welcome, ma'am.
Well, Mayor. I'm Ann Kunze from Sioux Falls, and I came tonight to request an exemption to allow for urban hobby beekeeping in an open area with low population density. I've been researching hobby beekeeping with the intention of establishing hives this spring. In doing the research, I've been in conversation with Robert Reiner, the state bee inspector, Dale Rye, a long-term commercial beekeeper from Renner, South Dakota, Dennis Smith, the owner of a rural acreage at T, Paul Carlson, the landowner in Graceland Development, and my son Scott Kunze, who's employed at Citibank, who would be assisting me. And I have read the most useful books. I've been scouting the internet and going to all the websites and suppliers, etc., and have gathered information on the local beekeepers and producers in South Dakota in this area. And I was really pleased the other day when I found out from the state beekeeper and beekeeping inspector that we are the 5th in the nation in terms of honey production. My original intent was to locate the hives on a rural acreage, but I found out that because of the new practice of impregnating seed corn with a pesticide that goes up through the stem of the corn into the tassel that poisons the bees and can poison the hive and the honey. And the fact that aphids are sprayed quite a lot on soybean land, and it's not a very good nectar producing, that the rural acreage that I had in mind was perfect in a lot of ways, but not for that. It was hazardous to the bees. Paul Carlson of Carlson General Carpentry he's a longtime friend, has a large acreage here in Sioux Falls, and when I visited with him, he was very interested in having the bees on his land, and he's located right next to an alfalfa field, right next to Skunk Creek. It backs up to the highway, I-29. There's just open space all around him, trees, and fresh water for the bees. And I have a shared garden there. And so he's very interested in having the hives on his property, and I have a consent from him and his wife as a landowner. There's only one house within 2 blocks, and that's a couple that both signed consent forms for me to have the bees there. And the alfalfa field and the gardens and the wild area along Skunk Creek with all the wildflowers and weeds is ideal for the bees. And I contacted the mosquito control department of the city and found out that the department prides themselves on not causing bee or butterfly loss because they spray in the evening after the insects are asleep. And so she said she would check with me on city ordinances, but she didn't get back to me until a couple of days ago and said that the city ordinances require bees on agricultural land. Well, this was rezoned developmental land, but it hasn't really been developed. I was surprised that they didn't have beekeeping allowed in the city because I was on your website, and under the zoning topic, there was a topic of bees, and it had all kinds of videos on your website for the city council promoting urban beekeeping. So I was surprised to find out there was restrictions. And I talked again to the state beekeeping inspector, and he said that there had been beekeepers in Sioux Falls, but he checked now, and they haven't been for a couple of years or so. And he said that many municipalities are passing ordinances specifically allowing urban beekeeping, and that's very good because the nation has gone through colony collapse, and the crops in America are very short of pollinators, and a lot of these commercial beekeepers just move those hives from one area of the United States to another to rent them out to farmers to pollinate their crops because their crops are not being pollinated. And he also said that having honeybees in an area prevents the killer bee from moving in. If you don't have a lot of honeybees, then they move in. So he was encouraging us to have honeybees here. I've made arrangements to buy bees from Dale Rye, who is a longtime commercial beekeeper here at Renner, and I've given him a check for half down, and he was to bring the bees in May, and then I found out that there's this restriction, and the bees have to be done by the 1st of May. Everything has to be ready, the hive stand and the supplies and everything. So I've attached for your information here, if you go to the back of these pages, I've attached a collage of pictures. The center picture is the Carlson home in Graceland Development, and to the right-hand side of the picture is the open area on the west side of the house and the south side, and on the left-hand side are the pictures of the twin home across the street, which is the only house within a couple of blocks. And they've given me written consent. And then the alfalfa field, and Skunk Creek is there. I-29 is behind them. So it's just a wide open natural area. So I'm asking for an exemption. You'll find on the next page is a map showing the location of the Graceland development. It's just a wide open area. And then on the back is copies of the written approvals from the neighbors and from the landowner. And so I would like to get started this year, but the time is, we've got 1 month left. And so I'm asking for the ability to go ahead with that.
Ms. Kunze, thank you very much. Mike Cooper is right there behind you, and he also is responsible for Shauna Goldhammer, who can help you with this process. So right, that gentleman right there. But thank you very much for your time tonight.
Okay,
we
thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you. Is there anyone else who wanted to speak to the council on a general topic tonight? Well, very good. Thank you very much for those comments. We do appreciate it. We'll now move on to item number 27.
Item 27 is deferred action, second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the revised ordinances of the city by revising Chapter 2 Administration to change the day when council meetings are held and other council procedures.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilor Urbanbach.
Mr. Mayor, item 27 is a proposal to change a strict series of deadlines for getting items on city council agendas and for changing council meeting nights from Mondays to Tuesdays. The goal of this action is twofold. One, this change will streamline the agenda process that often becomes bogged down. In my brief time as vice chair of this body, I have seen it numerous times. Our rules, set in ordinance, make it difficult for the council to work efficiently in many instances. We often wait weeks to complete a process that really doesn't require that much time. Second, this schedule change will provide 1 extra working day between the weekend and the actual council meeting. This will help both administration and council staff members more easily comply with the 24-hour agenda notice required by state open meetings laws. My personal goal is to see no more last-minute walk-ins to our agendas. This ordinance change had its first reading in January, but its second reading was deferred to May 7th. Council members will recall the deferral was made while the Charter Revision Commission considered a proposal to take contract approvals out of council control. Our action on this item would have been null and void if that provision passed the Charter Revision Commission. Now we know that item is no longer being considered, and as an individual member of this body and as your vice chair, I have seen the difficulties that these deadlines create, not only for staff, but for our own committees. It is currently against the law for a council committee to meet on a Monday night, like tonight, and put an item on next Monday's agenda. The deadline for that agenda has already passed. So I did take it upon myself as an individual council member, and I testified before the Fiscal Committee last month. Fiscal Committee was reviewing how the contracts ordinance was working since its adoption in October. I asked the committee to consider moving this item from its May 7th scheduled date to this evening for its second reading. I told the group then that I wanted it to happen, but I was unwilling to push this forward without more of the council in agreement. They agreed, and here we are. That is my introduction to this item, Mr. Mayor. I do have other comments about a variety of reasons that this item makes sense, but I will save those for council discussion following public input. Thank you.
Councilor, great job. Thank you, Councilor Urbanbach. Folks, this is a second reading, so you do have the opportunity to engage the council on this topic if you're interested. Is anybody interested in talking to the council? Please, come forward, Scott. Welcome.
Scott Arisman, Sioux Falls. I think it's a good idea to move the council meetings to Tuesday for a number of reasons, lots of reasons. But I do disagree with how this is going. We're electing some new, or at least one new counselor here real soon. And I think it should be up to the next council to vote on this and to decide this. I just don't understand the rush here. My opinion on the matter is, I hope you all vote no, so that it gets deferred and the next council can decide on this. My opinion on the matter is, I sometimes scratch my head and I wonder if the city council has learned anything from the termination of Deborah Owen and the way we rush things and push things through. Seems like it takes months and months and months to get some ordinance or something passed that goes through all these committees. But then some things we just have to hammer it through in one day or 1 week, and it doesn't make any sense. There's a big distrust in our city government amongst people. One of those reasons is because, not because people have an opinion about somebody up here or your personalities or anything, mostly because of transparency and the way things are done. People kind of scratch their head a little bit and go, why are we rushing something like this? We're just moving a council meeting day from one to another. I And I'm kind of concerned about it too. I don't understand what the big rush is. I hope you all vote no, and or I don't even know. Can you table it again? Let the next council decide what they want to do with this. It just came up too quick, and I don't agree with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Is there anybody else? Yes, welcome. Welcome, Sue.
Sue Roust, former interim city clerk for the city. Well, I'm here tonight as a private citizen. The reason I chose to come and speak tonight is because I was heavily involved in putting together this proposed ordinance, worked on it for several months while I was serving as your interim city clerk, and I would like to explain the rationale behind some of the proposals that are in it. First of all, just a few comments on timeline. This idea has really been discussed over most of the last 6 months. It's not something that has come up suddenly. One thing I would like to point out is that when you chose, because of the Charter Revision Commission's actions, to postpone action on this item until you knew for sure if you were going to have the authority to approve contracts, you chose to set the second reading for May 7th. This would have been after the election, so you would know if you were still able to approve contracts. However, it was well before new council members took office. New council members will not take office till May 21st. Your intention was to do this on May 7th, and so it was not necessarily to involve new council members in that decision. And then, of course, the reason it's been moved up is that now it's obvious that this item was not on the April 10th election, and so there's no reason to delay it. What I'm showing there is what the timeline, how the timeline would change if you had Tuesday council meetings, and I'd just like to run through it and compare what you do now versus what is proposed. It is moving things a day. But in addition, we suggested a few other changes that, as Councilor Erpenbach said, would streamline some of your processes and save you literally weeks at times in taking action on items. Right now, your agenda deadline for a Monday meeting is the previous Monday at 10 a.m. Our suggestion was that you move the deadline so it's still a week ahead, but it's at 2 p.m. instead of 10 a.m., so gaining 4 hours at the beginning of the schedule. The second item there is the one that I think is one of the most important. As Councilor Erpenbach said, right now, any action you take on a Monday at a committee meeting is already past the deadline for the following week. And so my proposal was that you move that a day. Just specifically items that the council passes, a council committee passes to send on to the full council. And so our suggestion was we have one extra day, so if your meeting is the following Tuesday and you have a council committee meeting on a Tuesday, you would have till the next afternoon to get that on the agenda. And then currently the full agenda and all attachments are made public, are released on SIRE on our website at 1 p.m. on Wednesday, 5 days before your meeting. That really leads to kind of straitjacketing you from making changes. Everything's been made public far before it's legally required, and what that means is it's very difficult to make changes after the public has seen what your proposed actions are. So instead, we were proposing that the agenda be emailed internally to the council, the mayor, and the city directors, department heads, by Thursday at 3 p.m. And then on Friday or late Thursday, there be an agenda review meeting, the same as there is now. Right now, there's one on Thursday mornings that involves council leadership, the mayor, and the department directors. So that would come after those folks had all gotten the agenda and all of you had seen the agenda. But then the full release of the agenda and all attachments would take place Friday by 5 p.m. This is still 3 full days before your meeting. It gives the council members the full weekend to review all the agenda items as they have now. One benefit I think this has is what I saw even before I started and while I was here is we frequently had the problem of releasing agenda items, releasing documents in SIRE by Wednesday at 1 p.m., and then a department would find that there'd been a mistake made or they had to revise something. And because that was already public, we didn't want to take it off the website because that would confuse people. And so instead, we would leave the original there and put a revised one there. I know the week that I was appointed back in October, you approved your contract ordinance. And I went out and tried to figure it out, and I looked, and I believe there were 7 documents attached to that agenda item, including 3 or 4 different amendments. And as a citizen, I could not tell what it was you were intending to do because of all the different things there. I believe that giving the citizens more final information on a timely basis will benefit them rather than having a whole bunch of different things that you have to kind of wade through. Now, the way we have talked about this allowing more flexibility, but at the same time giving the required 24-hour notice. That would be done by having a secondary deadline on Monday at noon, which is a deadline for agenda additions. And these are items that come up over the weekend, for instance, a contract that it is coming in late and has to be approved. Rather than walking them in the night of the meeting, we would set a deadline of the day before at noon so that that information could be disseminated to the media, to all the council members, the mayor, the department heads, all those people who have asked for notification, and it would be posted on our website 24 hours plus in advance of the meeting, so meeting all legal deadlines. The thought was we would put it out there at the end of your agenda under items added after the agenda deadline with a notation right there that these items would need to receive a majority vote if they were to be considered the following evening. But the public would have full notice of what was coming, what was intended. Our hope was that there would be no more walk-ins, so there would be no more actions taken that the public is not fully notified of. And then your meeting would be on Tuesday night instead of Monday, with the minutes published on Saturday. If you were to approve this tonight, the earliest potential effective date that it could take effect would be Tuesday, May 1st. One comment about Tuesday nights instead of Monday. In 2012, there are 7 Monday holidays. And so there are already 7 times that you have to meet on Tuesday instead of Monday. So by going with Tuesdays all the time, you would miss most of those Monday holidays, and your meeting night would be more consistent. On the downside, nothing is perfect. Tuesday nights are election nights. And so from time to time, you're going to have a conflict there. Another thing that we discovered during the legislative session is that there are times when there are legislative activities in Pierre and you were needing to travel to Pierre on a Tuesday night for something that was taking place Wednesday and Thursday. There is less conflict with that if you stick to Mondays, because it seems like those activities are later in the week. And so nothing is perfect. You're going to have to balance. But by doing this, I believe you will be able to provide much better information to the public. Now, I also wanted to mention there were 3 other proposals in here.
We're at 9 minutes. If it's council, any comments? You comfortable?
If we could let
Go
her
ahead.
finish as
Sue,
a former
right
staff
ahead.
member.
Go right ahead.
I will try to finish promptly. There were 3 proposals in here that were proposed by me based on my observations of the workflow in the city clerk's office, and I just wanted to speak to those briefly. Number 1 was to remove the requirement to record executive session minutes. The information in your executive session minutes currently includes the motion and vote to go into session, stating the specific provision of the open meeting law that applies, and the motion and vote to go out of executive session. That exact same information is in your publicly distributed meeting minutes. There is nothing additional. There are no actions recorded because actions cannot be taken in executive session. The city clerk is not present during executive session to record any details of the meeting. Our other comparable local governments, Sioux Falls School District and Minnehaha County, do not take executive session minutes. One other thing that has come up since this was first proposed is in the 2012 legislature, House Bill 1184 was proposed that would have specifically allowed taking of executive session minutes by local governments, and that failed in committee. Second one was to remove the ordinance language designating the city clerk as parliamentarian. That creates a conflict with Robert's rules. And so when I saw it, I wanted to go back and see what the rationale was. That language was just added to ordinance last July. And I listened back to the Public Service Committee meetings and the first and second reading where that ordinance change took place to see what the rationale was. All I found was that the sentence was read once in your March 2011 Public Service Committee meeting with no explanation or rationale behind it, and that at the June 2011 Public Service Committee meeting, the city attorney raised a concern that this was in conflict with Robert's rules. My additional concern and reason for proposing the change was that when your city clerks or assistant city clerks are taking minutes, monitoring your broadcasting and web streaming of your meetings, and then get called upon to give parliamentary advice at the same time, it puts them in a difficult situation. I would encourage you to take that back out of the ordinance and leave the chair of the meeting the flexibility to ask advice of the city clerk, the city attorney, or your legislative operations manager as that person sees fit. The third thing I proposed was that to remove the requirement that executive orders be filed with the city clerk. And if you'll remember back at first reading on January 3rd, I told you that I was requesting that that not be approved. Rather than taking that out, which at first I saw as a duplication of effort between the city clerk's office and human resources. On further consideration, I believe that we should be providing more information to our citizens. Therefore, my recommendation would be don't take that requirement out, but instead have staff report on all newly filed executive orders at your informational meetings so the public knows what they are. And I would further ask you to consider posting them on the City Council website. So, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. Should I leave that?
Folks, is there anybody else who wanted to speak to the council? Welcome.
Hello, Corey Butemeyer, hopefully potential member of your board here shortly. I have no issues with the Tuesday meeting. Actually, I think it's a fantastic idea for open government because it allows you guys and myself to review everything that's going on, and I think you guys should fantastically approve the moving to Tuesdays. Thank you.
Thank you, Corey. Yes, welcome.
I'm Dee Knudsen. I'm one of 3 candidates running for the open spot, at-large spot, next Tuesday, and I totally agree with one of my opponents, Corey Butemeyer, and all of you. I think that you've given very, very good reasons to move the meetings to Tuesday, and I much prefer that plan.
Thank you, Dee. Folks, anybody else? Well, very good. Council, any comments or motions?
I move approval of Erpenbach.
Second, Aguilar.
Councilor Erpenbach has made a motion to approve this topic. It was seconded by Councilor Aguilar. Is there any discussion on this?
You know what, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor
I would like to make a motion to amend.
Okay, great.
I'm amending the main motion by deleting the final sentence in section 2.16, subsection A, which reads, "During public opinion, city council members are not permitted to engage in a dialogue or discussion with the presenter."
Second, Aguilar.
Point of order, during public input.
What did I say?
Public opinion.
Sorry. During public input. Correction. My apologies.
There has been a motion made to amend this main motion by Councilor Erpenbach. It was seconded by Councilor Aguilar. Is there any discussion on this? Very good. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Brown?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Is there any other discussion on this amended main motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to
Councilor Mbach?
make another motion to amend the main motion by amending the final sentence in Section 2-35 to read, "All executive orders shall be filed with the city clerk."
Second, Brown.
It's been a motion by Councilor Mbach to amend the amended main motion. It was seconded by Councilor Brown. Is there any discussion? A roll call vote, please.
Council members Brown?
Yes.
Entman?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
That has passed 8-0.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Mbach.
Then my final motion to amend the main motion by adding Section 236 to read as, Section 236, effective date. This ordinance will take effect with the first Tuesday meeting in May 2012, being May 1st, 2012.
Second, Aguilar.
Thank you, Councilor Mbach. She's made a motion to amend the amended main motion. It was seconded by Councilor Aguilar. Is there any discussion on this item? A roll call vote, please.
Council members Brown?
Yes.
Entman?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Thank you. That has passed 8-0. Any further discussion, Council? Well, very good. We do have an amended main motion. We'll have a vote to adopt the motion as amended.
Council members Brown?
Yes.
Entman?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Thank you. Item 28.
Item 28 is the second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 501 to 519 South Minnesota Avenue from the RA2 Residential District and the C2 General Commercial District to the Sub-Area B of the Gigglebees Redevelopment Plan Development District, petition number 2012-0201, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. The Planning Commission recommends approval.
Good evening. I'm Mike Cooper, representing Planning and Building Services. We have a number of items tonight that were considered by the City Planning Commission at their last regular monthly meeting. This is a request submitted by First Midwest Bank. The petition is to change the zoning to allow the former Gigglebees building to be renovated into an office building for First Midwest Bank. This bank will be at the southeast corner of the property at 14th and Minnesota Avenue. The zoning also provides for a future outlot on the very northeast corner of the block that could be developed separately as a retail, business, or office development. The purpose of going to a planned development is because the existing building does not meet current setback requirements for the traditional commercial zoning districts. So by doing a planned development, it will allow the reuse of the existing building with setback reductions along Minnesota Avenue. It also allow more utilization of the property for parking. One of the questions that was asked at first reading is the parking proposal. The parking plan as presented shows that with this building, there would be a requirement of 42 off-street parking spaces, 42, in addition to 9 stacking spaces for the bank drive-up. For the bank project only, the applicant is proposing to provide a total of 51 off-street parking spaces. 2 of those would be under the building, enclosed, and 49 would be exterior parking spaces. They would also be providing the 9 stacking spaces per the ordinance. The future development up on the northeast corner would have to provide its own off-street parking separately. So this is strictly just for the bank. So the plan is that we want to be able to try to work together with the bank as well as the adjoining apartment building with the idea of potentially sharing parking, because that did come up with some previous discussions. So this is an exciting reuse of this property. It is part of the Pettigrew Heights neighborhood area, and with the approval of the apartments to the west, and now with this redevelopment, we hope to see that entire block eventually come forth with a new life, so to speak. So again, the Planning Commission has recommended approval of this zoning change.
Mr. Cooper, thank you. Folks, this is again a second reading. Is there anybody in the audience who wanted to speak to this? Very good. Council. Yes. Councilor Rolfing?
Mike, if you could go back there. You said the future building on the northeast corner there is going to have to take care of their own parking.
Yes.
How many are the parking places that I see right there going into that building? Are those part of the bank lots?
No.
They're not.
No. The bank is providing its own parking that will include 49 outdoor
Okay.
parking spaces.
So my concern was there that piece of property would be isolated with about 5 parking places and wouldn't have room for anything else that would be commercially feasible for something to go in there with about 5 parking places and some street parking. But you've obviously left some room there for some parking there too. So okay.
We are planning ahead.
Yeah, I figured you probably would, but I wanted to make sure. Every once in a while I catch you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good job, Councilor Rolfing. Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry, Councilor Anderson Jr.
Mike, where are we with the bank as far as negotiating about those parking spaces?
Well, once we get this, assume that we do get this approved, and they move forward with their construction, there's still another step as far as getting the apartment project approved at the state level. Once we know that, then we will begin those negotiations.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Enneman.
Mike, a question for you too. You said we had talked about shared parking. Now, if that is with an apartment house that's built there, are you talking sharing parking for the apartment house along with the bank, the
Yes,
spots we're requiring?
if that's a possibility, because the bank actually will be providing more than the required parking.
Okay.
It's a concept that we would look at, because I know there was a question earlier about the availability of off-street parking for the apartment project. So I think we'll kind of work with both parties and then see what we believe the needs are for both sides.
Councilor Jansen.
Thank you, Mike. The bank owns the whole block, right?
No. I don't believe they own the apartment portion of the block.
Okay, everything but that northeast corner that Dave just outlined? Said?
The northwest portion of the block is the apartment land that was already approved by City Council. Lloyd Companies is going to be developing that.
Okay, so the fact that the bank has their parking figured out and at a point that the city is comfortable with, it's up to them to figure it out after that. The bank is fine.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Good job. Well, City Council team, would anybody like to make a motion?
Move to approve, Entenmann.
Second, Rolfing.
Councilor Enneman's made a motion to approve. It was seconded by Councilor Rex Rolfing. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Council members Brown?
Yes.
Entman?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Thank you. That is passed 8-0. Item 29.
Item 29 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 4101 West 12th Street from the River Run Planned Development District to the C2 General Commercial District, petition number 2012-0202, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. The Planning Commission recommends approval.
This is a petition submitted by Billion Motors. They're currently operating an auto dealership in this area along West 12th Street, just west of the Big Sioux River. They are asking for permission to change the zoning to allow them to expand their sales and display area, parking of vehicles. The area to the south was previously approved as a planned development for multifamily residential. And essentially what we're doing is we're moving the transition, which is a word I'll be using again later on tonight. We're moving a transition from multifamily to commercial. There is existing multifamily further to the south of this property. Between the expanded parking and the existing multifamily, there is an existing tree area that will also act as a buffer. There was also a question at first reading about the east side. There's an easement from the river of about 100 feet to the west, and then there's about another 25-foot setback beyond that. So the expansion is still going to be buffered from the river greenway. So again, we're changing it from planned development to traditional commercial, which is the zoning that's the same as the majority of the existing auto sales lot. And this is also recommended for approval by the Planning Commission.
Thanks, Mike. Anybody in the audience want to speak to this item? Very good. Council.
Move for approval, Anderson.
Second, Entenmann.
Councilor Anderson Jr. has made a motion to approve this item and is seconded by Councilor Entenmann. Any discussion? A roll call vote, please.
Council members Brown? Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Item 30.
Item 30 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 1201 East 21st Street from the O Office District to the Subarea D of the Avera McKinnon Planned Development District, petition number 2012-0208, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. The Planning Commission recommends approval.
This is a petition submitted by Avera McKinnon, the owner of this property, which consists of about 0.6 acres. It is on the east side of Cliff Avenue and south of 21st Street. It is adjacent to existing residential to the east and a commercial barber shop to the south. The primary purpose of this zoning change is really to allow the employees of McKinnon to operate a community garden site at this location with a structure. They've been working with some local design people in the community and have come up with a pretty unique garden shelter design. We are working through our zoning ordinance with Councilor Rolfing on community gardens. So this is kind of a beginning of what we could see at other places throughout the community. There was also a question with this first reading about if McKinnon owns other property in this area, and based on the records that we researched, this is the only property that they own within that block. So we are not, by allowing this, saying that the hospital is going to continue to encroach into that residential neighborhood, but it's really as a way to begin the operation of a community garden site at this location with a kind of an interesting green structure that will be developed. So again, the Planning Commission is recommending approval of this zoning change.
Mike, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who wanted to speak to this item? Council, any comments or motions?
Move approval, Rolfing.
Second, Karski.
Councilor Rolfing, thank you, and Councilor Karski, thank you as well. There's been a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. If there are no further comments, roll call vote, please.
Council members Brown?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Thank you. That is passed 8-0. 31.
Item 31 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 3500 East Rice Street from the I-1 Light Industrial District and the RC Recreation Conservation District to the I-1 Light Industrial District and the RC Recreation Conservation District, petition number 2012-0211, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. The Planning Commission recommends approval.
This is a petition by Sweetman Construction Company on behalf of their concrete materials operation. They are currently operating a facility all along this area, along East Rice Street in this area. They are looking at expanding their operation by adding some storage silos for cement and fly ash as part of their operation. And the zoning change that you can see up on the screen, to the left is the current zoning configuration, and then on the right it shows the area that would be changed from recreation conservation to light industrial. This proposed development will not violate our floodplain management ordinance, and the Planning Commission has recommended approval of this zoning change.
Thank you, Mike. Anybody in the audience want to speak to this? Council, any comments or motions?
Move
Councilor
for approval,
Karski.
Anderson.
Councilor Anderson Jr. has made a motion to approve. Councilor Karski.
Just question, Mike.
Just one second. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Thank you. It's been a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Councilor Karski.
Will this, changing it from a recreation to light industrial, is there going to be truck traffic going through this? Is it going to, how is the stuff going to be transported to these silos? Is it by conveyor?
There's rail and vehicular truck access in and out of that site already.
Already? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
So primarily, they're adding, as shown on the plan, 2 storage silos for the material that they use with their production process.
If there are no more further questions, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Brown?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Thank you. That is passed 8-0. Item 32.
Item 32 is a second reading and ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at northeast corner of South Minnesota Avenue and West 85th Street from the C4 Planned Commercial District, O Office District, RA1, RD, and RS2 Residential Districts, and the RC Recreation Conservation District to the C4 Planned Commercial District, O Office District, RA1, and RD Residential Districts, and the RC Recreation Conservation District, petition number 2012-0212, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. The Planning Commission recommends approval.
This is a petition submitted by Clint Ackerman, who is proposing to develop this property, the northeast corner of 85th and Minnesota Avenue, which consists of approximately 52 acres. Mr. Ackerman is proposing to change the current zoning that was approved by the City Council back in 2007. The property is adjacent to an existing development to the north called Grand Prairie. On the west side is Minnesota Avenue, south 85th Street, and on the east side is also residential development area. The curve area that's shown in the plan is the proposed corridor for the future South Dakota 100. The zoning plan that was approved back in 2007 provided for a variety of land uses which are color-coded, and I'll go through those for purposes of explanation. The bright yellow is called RS2, which allows for single-family residential detached as an allowed use. It also provides for twin home development by conditional use permit. The green is recreation conservation, RC, which in this case was proposed to be primarily for stormwater detention and drainage. There was not a neighborhood park or park site being proposed with this development area. The tan area is RD zoning, which allows for twin homes or 4-unit townhomes by conditional use, but would also be allowed for single-family development. The darker brown is RA1, which is the traditional multifamily apartment land, but could also be developed as to lower density residential. The blue is office, and then the red is commercial. So back in 2007, when this zoning plan was approved by the council, it provided for, in our comprehensive plan in our zoning districts, kind of that traditional transition of land uses, where at the major intersections you would see higher uses such as commercial or office, and then you would transition from those uses into a medium density residential and then to a lower density residential, which in this case was at the very north end adjacent to the Grand Prairie development. Grand Prairie had been approved a year or two before this and was just beginning to develop as single family. And then the corner of Grand Prairie was also approved for a concept called Z-lots, which is a higher density of single family development, where the lot lines are closer together. So that's kind of a real brief history of what happened back in 2007. Mr. Ackerman has come forward now with a petition to change the existing zoning based on what he believes is a change in the housing market for this area from what it might have been back in 2007. So again, the color chart on the right gives you a comparison with what Mr. Ackerman is requesting for you to consider tonight as a change to the 2007 existing zoning on the left side. The commercial, which is in red, is about the same total acres, although the configuration has been revised. The multifamily RA1 is now being proposed for townhomes as well as twin homes or townhome development. And then the yellow, which is on the north side, you can see has been reduced down to one row of lots, which Mr. Ackerman is proposing to be developed into twin homes. As I said earlier, the RS2 allows twin homes only by conditional use. And the conditional use application typically goes to the Planning Commission, and they would be voting on that, which would be the final say unless it would be appealed to the City Council. So that's the process that would have to go through. So even today, the existing yellow area on the left side, somebody could come forward with a conditional use permit petition that would have to be considered at a public hearing. Mr. Ackerman, in addition to the zoning plan that's being presented tonight to you, has also submitted a petition for a conditional use for that row of twin homes along the north side. And that would potentially be considered by the Planning Commission this Wednesday night, depending on what the outcome is of this zoning vote tonight. Prior to the Planning Commission hearing, there was a neighborhood meeting, and at the Planning Commission meeting, we heard a substantial amount of public testimony with concerns about the transition. Again, that transition of Grand Prairie, which is all single-family detached, to the proposed Springdale addition, which would be twin homes. And that's what you'll be hearing tonight, I'm sure, as part of the public testimony is, should that transition be at the lot line, at the property line, as proposed by Mr. Ackerman? The staff and the Planning Commission did recommend approval of this zoning change because we did look at transitions, and the transitions are still there, although they are proposed to be revised from the current plan. But that transition from single family to twin home to townhome is still being provided. So really, it's going to be up to you tonight, the council, to decide if you believe the transition is adequate that Mr. Ackerman is providing, or as you'll hear from the Grand Prairie neighborhood, that Mr. Ackerman should be asked to provide additional transition of single family and then the twin home. Within our zoning ordinance and within our comprehensive plan, we don't specify who should provide the transition land uses, or how they should be provided, or how big of an area they should be. We really try to let the market determine that, and the adjacent property owners. And I know we've been asked that already as to why isn't staff making the developer keep a certain amount of RS2. We just don't have that within our planning policies. But that's something that you are going to be asked to consider tonight, I'm pretty sure. Mr. Ackerman is here tonight, as well as representatives of Grand Prairie, and I believe Mr. Ackerman is going to show you some examples of other developments where the single family was developed next to twin homes. But again, I think that's the key issue that we'll hear about tonight. We also heard some discussion about modifying the office zoning at the northwest corner of the proposed plan. That is being addressed by Lloyd Companies, that they are going to be the developers of the commercial and office land uses. And I believe they have a representative here tonight as well. So I know there's a lot of people that want to comment, Mayor, besides me, but I'll just stop there and see if the council has any questions at this point.
Mike, before we go to you, why don't we open it up
Sure,
to
go ahead.
the public?
I'll step down.
And again, we're certainly pleased to have all of you here tonight. If you wouldn't mind, come forward, state your name. You don't have to give us your address. Just state your name. And if you could limit your comments to 5 minutes or less, we'd appreciate it. Also, I know the council would also prefer, if you've got differing comments that may even lend a different perspective, that's certainly important to hear. But again, it's your council, it's your meeting, but please come forward. And I know Mr. Ackerman is also here, so if he would like to speak as well, that sounds fine. Maybe, Mr. Ackerman, would you like to start? Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, council members. First of all, I just want to thank Mike for a great job on that, and it kind of messes up my presentation, but I'll try and piecemeal it together. First of all, I'd like to break my presentation to additional presentation to 7 items. First, development site selection. Second, existing zoning. Third, proposed zoning. Fourth, development overview. And then neighborhood meeting concerns as 5th. Existing land uses as 6, and then I'll conclude with 7. First of all, the development site selection. I just have a couple comments. You know, the main thing with this development piece and this property is that it's bordered on 3 sides of 3 main arterial streets, 1 being 85th Street, 2 being Minnesota, and 3 being South Dakota 100. To me, when I look at the property, you know, the land use that we're proposing is very conducive for that, because you're going to have increased traffic and so forth through that area. And the other thing why we looked at the property is because this mixed-use development is at a hard corner, and it allows us for great access and great visibility for our project and our products. To the second item, existing zoning, I just want to take note that, like Mike said, the northern property is currently RS2, and on the new zoning, it's staying RS2. And I also just want to point out that between the existing zonings, the perimeter of the property really isn't changing much. We're just changing the interior zoning within the property. You know, and as Mike stated, the economics of new development are different today, and people are looking for a different product and different buyer. And we just felt that the zoning that we currently have there doesn't meet our needs and our desires for the development. Again, on the proposed zoning, the RS2 remained unchanged. And then we'll move into development overview, and I'm going to give you a little explanation of what we're planning to do for the development. On the commercial side of the development, we are trying to create a community with great service, with general services to meet immediate needs of the neighborhood residents, such as coffee shops, gas station, restaurants, fast food, small grocer, banking, hair salons, clothing retailers, post office, etc. On the office side, we're just looking for general office use. We move into multifamily. You know, this project, if we could go to slide 5 and 6. I get back right there. This project is set up for a 2-story townhouse-style complex with 8 and 14-unit buildings. Each unit will have their own attached garage, laundry, separate entrance, thus creating more of an individual home setting. There will be a community building. I think that's a community building with large, fully equipped exercise room, community room for gatherings, on-site office staff, maintenance garage, exterior pool, and large park area with its own play set. This project will be professionally managed and maintained by the leading management company of the Greater Sioux Falls Lloyd Companies. Now on to the twin home and townhome. So if you can go to slide 3, back one. Perfect. This community is proposed to be twin homes and 4-unit townhouses, which will be owner-occupied. The proposed twin homes will be constructed on RS2 lots, which lie adjacent to the Grand Prairie if I get the conditional use permit approved on Wednesday night. The proposed unit mix will be 2-bedroom, 2-bath units, 3-bedroom, 3-bath units. And the townhouses will be built on the remaining RD property. There will be an association with restrictive covenants for the entire twin home community, which will maintain lawn care, snow removal, garbage service, covenants, etc. The apartment community building and common areas will be cross-utilized between both the apartments and the townhouse association. It's a way for us to create a community that creates a price point for the townhouses that they can also have those amenities as well. We'd like to create a neighborhood, retail, and residential area where we can embrace the live, work, and play philosophy. Why drive to services when you can walk? Furthermore, although it's not Grand Prairie, we believe this is going to be a grand development as well. On to item number 5, which is neighborhood meeting and concerns. We got several concerns out of the neighborhood meetings. We had 2 neighborhood meetings, one on March 1st and one on March 27th. We sent out probably 32 letters, which we're estimating there was probably 52 residents total, and there were only 17 attendees at the first meeting and only 11 on the second meeting. Out of the first meeting, we got the following concerns and issues and tried to accommodate as much as possible. One of the first items in this neighborhood meetings and concern area is transitioning. The attendees did not like the first proposal, which did have commercial on the northwest corner, and also they didn't like it where we originally proposed RD, which would be 4-unit townhouses on the north property line abutting up to Grand Prairie. We conceded, although it was not a unanimous vote, there was a general acceptance that twin homes would be generally agreeable at that time. So we conceded and went to twin homes. And I guess to me, I was proposing RD, and we have RS2, and the middle grounds to me is meeting with twin homes. So I felt that was a fair compromise. On the second meeting, we conceded to increase the size of the office building on the corner of the office property on the corner of Minnesota and 81st again. We also increased some lot sizes on the RS2 side, which butts up to them. I increased them from 125 feet to 140 feet just to create more additional green space. That wasn't necessarily a comment brought up. I just did that to accommodate more green space. I just shoved all my properties to the south a little further. And just to be clear, we are just applying for straight zoning changes here. And if there's opposition against my twin homes that I'm applying for, I guess I don't feel that this is the time for it because we're just applying for straight zoning. Right now it's RS2, which we can go in and do a single family. And I guess that should be addressed at the Planning Commission on Wednesday. There was concerns about traffic. There was concerns that traffic would flow through their development. And we believe that the traffic is going to take the simplest route to a full access intersection, which is through our development, not theirs. We did make a proposal to vacate the connecting street between the developments, but we ran into some resistance with the fire department and the city. We also discussed, it was brought up in the same meetings and concerns, that property value and existing zoning on subject property. There are several comments about their high-end home investments, and I guess I addressed this by stating that it ultimately is a responsibility of the developer, the representing realtor, to educate the potential buyers that there are no guarantees on neighboring property that is not currently developed as to what it could be in the future. Times and economies change, but the city must keep growing to meet current demands. Furthermore, the current zoning of RS2 does not regulate property values, as Mike said, and the current zoning can lend itself to any type of single family that the new developer desires without neighborhood input. I personally take the same stance that the city administrators, councilors, commissioners currently do and have as long as I lived in Sioux Falls area. We have not taken any role in regulating property values between developments or zoning districts. We only regulate zoning. Also, I strongly believe that every citizen or person deserves the right to the same treatment and consideration whatever stage of life they are at, and it should not be bound by location. Now I'd like to move into existing land uses, so can we go to slide 7? What we have here is a slide that indicates...
Mr. Ackerman, if I could,
Yeah.
how much longer is your presentation usually?
About 3 minutes.
Okay. Council, are you comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Very good. Mr. Ackerman, please.
Okay. What we have here is we have just an overall view of Sioux Falls, and what it's indicating is we have 8 dots on there that indicate developments that have this current transitioning that we're proposing. If we move to the next slide. This is 69th and Minnesota, and what we have there is, and this is going to be repetitive through all these slides, so we can kind of quickly go through these. We have single family, and we have twin home and multifamily. And most of these just have one row of transitioning between the single family and multifamily, as we have up here. Next slide, please, Prairie Meadows. Again, you'll see multifamily, twin home use, and then right into single family. Only one row of transitioning. Next slide, please. And here we have Prairie Gardens. Now, this is the development of the developer of Grand Prairie as well, who opposes our transitioning. And I guess I just want to point out that he currently uses this transitioning in his other developments. And in certain areas, he goes right from twin homes to commercial. And these are all developments that are approved in previous meetings. And then Aspen Heights is another one where we went right from RD to single-family use. So, and then slides 12 through 15, you can kind of page through them. They're all pretty much the same, showing you different transitions. And another comment on the exhibits is that some of these existing developments were rezoned after the zoning is already existing in place. And some of them are new developments. And, you know, it's just, not only is it just these 8, I actually, in the weeks past, drove through the city of Sioux Falls and tried to figure out exactly where there aren't transitions like this, and I had a really hard time finding that. And in conclusion, we did concede to some of the demands of the neighbors as follows. We increased office space not once but twice. We changed our proposed RD zoning back to RS2, zoning along Grand Prairie property line for the intended use of twin homes. And I also increased the depths of the adjacent lots just to allow more green space. We left, for the most part, the zoning around the perimeter of the property and only changing the interior zoning use of the subject property for our intended uses. Lastly, we only ask that you vote on this proposed zoning in the same manner when you are giving consideration on approving all these other exhibits that we're showing you tonight. And, you know, I just, you know, I guess I'm going to conclude with that, and I just appreciate your time, and thank you very much.
Mr. Ackerman, thank you very much as well. Mike, are you aware, are there other folks, is there anyone else who's in favor of this proposal that would like to speak right now? Very good. I know we have some neighbors from the neighborhood. If you wouldn't mind, just start coming forward. Again, if you could keep it to 5 minutes or less, we'd appreciate it. In Mr. Ackerman's case, he was representing, he's probably the one person who could give the council the best understanding of what he's trying to do. That's why they allowed him more time. But again, welcome. Just introduce yourself to the city of Sioux Falls, please.
Hi, my name is Aaron Mentley. I live in the Grand Prairie. I want to start by thanking you all for taking the time to consider the potential impact of this change. It's been a very difficult process for my neighbors. The original plan was actually drafted in such a way that we saw a gas station and large rental units sharing backyards with our single-family homes. So it's been very difficult to keep emotion out of our objections. And on that note, I should probably apologize, because I know many of you have been on the receiving end of that emotion in the form of emails and calls, etc. But this plan, as we're looking at it right now, is being characterized as a compromise. And in a few regards it is. In the last neighborhood meeting, we were actually able to develop a plan that provided a nice transition between our villa homes and potential for retail along Minnesota Avenue. That plan is actually something that we all feel is very practical, both in terms of being on paper and then again in practice. But we're still hoping for the same kind of consideration when we move towards the residential transitions. Technically, there is a transition. You can see it. It's the yellow line up there. That basically what that does is it moves from our single-family homes to duplexes or twin homes. We don't know for sure, and then moves into the larger rental units. And as I understand it, that's a requirement. What we're seeing here is actually a bare minimum reaction to that transition. So while we're very happy with the solution we came up with Craig Lloyd, which I don't actually see in this revised proposal, but I expect that it's part of this proposal, we haven't been able to come to any compromise with Signature. And these are dramatic changes to the residential zoning that we're all talking about as being the interior. So in other words, where the families are. And that's not to say that I have anything personal that I'm holding against Clint. We all understand that this is business. He's hoping that his changes will provide the most profitable reaction, but it also disregards the compromise that went into the current zoning laws. Many of us here own and operate our own businesses, so we understand where he's coming from. We also understand, though, that this is Sioux Falls. It's a small community, and there are rules and regulations and courtesies for businesses to follow. This is more than a matter of profit for us, though. This is something very important. This is personal. This affects our families. And it's very hard to really understand what this means in terms of looking at satellite images and color maps. It's much different if you look at this from the human perspective. My family was the first to move into the Grand Prairie, and we can tell you that this is not an adequate transition. I think all of my neighbors, I know all of my neighbors would tell you the same. So what we're here tonight to do is just to ask you to hold both sides to a reasonable compromise. It's been difficult for us to do that ourselves. We don't feel like a single row of duplexes or twin homes is adequate. But we're not asking for much. We're looking at the yellow area, and we're hoping it gets a little deeper. So unless anyone has any questions, I guess I'll turn it over to those who have some more specific details, and thank you all for your consideration.
Aaron, thank you. What we will do is we'll go through the testimony, and then the council, if they have questions, they'll remember your names, and we'll just bring you back up. Aaron, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Eric Willardson with Willardson Lund Engineering here in Sioux Falls. Here tonight on behalf of the property owners and the developers in the Grand Prairie, but more not to interject a lot of the emotional side of things, but try and give you the technical perspective of what went into the original design and the layout of the Grand Prairie and this particular property, as well as properties to the east of here and to the northeast of here. As Mike explained, over about the last 8 years, plus years, I've been involved acutely with the annexation processes, the development processes, and the zoning for this particular parcel, as well as the Grand Prairie parcel, the Grand Prairie Estates parcel immediately to the west of this, and the additional Grand Prairie that's been expanded to the northeast. In the next few minutes, I'm going to try and attempt to give you a brief overview of the development process of the area and how that's taken place over these last 8 years. Try and provide you with a much condensed version to try and keep this as short as possible. Obviously, this property began 8 years ago as a family farm, 160 acres, owned by the Holman family. The Holmans have been involved in this development process throughout that time. What we have now includes the Grand Prairie, which is the northern, essentially 80 acres, and the Holmans, what they refer to as the Springdale, which is the south 80 acres. As Mike indicated, the Grand Prairie was the first property that started to develop back in 2004. The zoning that you see on the northern part in the Grand Prairie, now consisting of the single-family houses and the Z-lots, was approved back in January of 2006. The Springdale land use then followed immediately after that in 2007 and was approved by this body in July of 2007. And the Grand Prairie Estates expanded to the east of here. It's a 40-acre development adjacent immediately to the east of this. Was approved by this body in May of 2008. Dan Lemmy and I, who Dan you'll hear from tonight, worked incredibly close and long hours with your planning staff and Mike to go through the future amendment, land use amendment process, as there was none in the capital improvement plan or at the comprehensive plan at that time. So we went through the future land use processes and ultimately came up with this zoning and the buffers that you see today. As well, in 2005, I was retained by the Holman family and had helped advise them to go through the annexation process and the rezoning process at that time, thinking it was probably in their best interest to get that land into the city. It was part of the entire Diamond Valley lift station area that had been approved of into the city, and to get the zoning secured at that time so that there wouldn't be questions and whatnot in the future, and that people that bought homes in the Grand Prairie and in the surrounding areas to the east could at least have some type of assurances in their mind of how that property was at least previously approved to develop. Now here we are, about 4 years into the development, and the current property owners and residents, who you'll hear from a few more of them as well tonight, are faced with potentially a markedly different appearance in the character of the zoning that they were led to believe was in place at the time they purchased their property, and how the property to the south eventually would develop. I brought some exhibits tonight, but essentially what you're seeing on the screen is what I have brought, both what the existing zoning is and what the proposed zoning is. Particularly along the north property line, the existing single-family RS2 buffer and conservation or recreation conservation existing is in the neighborhood of 400 to 500 feet deep. The proposed change in the zoning, as Mr. Ackerman indicated, is one row about 150 feet. That's a reduction, obviously, of about 300 feet. The recreation conservation buffer that you see along that north property line in the two green areas equates to about 1,300 feet of buffer, lineal buffer along the Grand Prairie. With the proposal, that's to be reduced down to about 700 feet, which is nearly a 50% reduction in that frontage that borders along Grand Prairie. Just seems like a lot. Also note that the office buffer that they're proposing along at 81st and Minnesota is being reduced from what was approximately 400 feet down to around 150. We are, as I think Aaron indicated, that Lloyd Properties and maybe Mike indicated that that is being looked at as possibly a larger transition area to a mixed use, and we would welcome that discussion with them. As you look at the existing zoning, there is no multifamily RA1 zoning on that side, on the north side of South Dakota, what would be South Dakota 100. With this petition, that's going to essentially place just over 12 acres of RA1 property onto that just south of the Grand Prairie within essentially 300 feet. That 12 acres of property represents potentially up to 210 apartment units that could be built on that 12 acres. We understand Mr. Ackerman's plan and would wish him the best and would like to compromise with him, but nothing's a sure deal except this zoning. Once the zoning's changed, whether his project goes or not, it's zoned the way it's zoned. It's my understanding that, and I think that's been brought forward tonight, that they've already submitted the conditional use permit for the RS2 property along that northern property line. Are the neighbors concerned? I'd say it's fair to say with the public meetings that I've been at and speaking with them that they are. And I'll try and wrap it up here in just a bit. I know you're going to about ready to get me, aren't you? Are they willing to compromise? I believe they are. We do have a compromise plan that we've looked at that extends the RS2 a little bit further down. And I guess if you would like to see that, we could put that up. Unfortunately, at this point, Mr. Ackerman has indicated that he's not interested in that at this time, that won't work for him. We even suggested at the neighborhood meeting the possibility of going to a planned development district that would allow you as a council to put some additional regulations on there. So far, it seems that that's fallen on deaf ears. So I guess with that, we would respectfully ask the council to help mediate this situation and provide the petitioner with some additional incentive to work out these issues with the landowners versus approving it or to simply deny the rezoning request.
Eric, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Mayor?
Sure, Councilor
He
Aguilar.
said he had a plan. Could we see that?
Eric, would you mind showing the plan that you had talked about to the council? Thank you. Would you mind explaining this to the council, please?
Sure. As you can see, the plan, what it essentially does is it extends the RS2 zoning an additional lot so that there's actually 2 rows of lots with a street down the middle of that RS2 running east to west. It replaces the recreation conservation zoning back to where it is right now. It provides the same office zoning on the northwest corner as exists now, and it reduces the RA1 zoning by that same amount, essentially leaving the rest of it the way Mr. Ackerman has indicated. I guess what you're going to hear tonight is they're looking for some more transition, and I think that's what we've tried to provide here.
Very good, thank you. Welcome. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Dan Lemmy. I'm the original developer of Grand Prairie. And just to give you a little quick history on that, again, Eric has gone through some of these things, but back when we developed this, we went with the Holman family on this whole 160-acre piece, asked them if we could purchase 80 acres of this. The Holman family explained to us that they wanted this to be a very special development. We agreed. We have the golf course there. We have a lot of nice stuff on that south side of town. So what we did is we went to Steve Metley, who was the planning director at that time, Lyle Johnson, who was the engineer at that time for the city, and said, this is what we want to do with the Grand Prairie. If you'll look at the Grand Prairie, we have a gated appearance to that, but that's a public street. And the mayor, or excuse me, the planning director said, Dan, he says, you're asking to put up this facade on a public street. They said, we can't do that. I explained to him, I said, this is what our concept of the Grand Prairie is to make this a very unique development, something very special, and we wanted to bend the rules. We came back with this proposal after a lot of design work and planning, and they approved that guard shack that you see in the boulevard on 77th Street, the gates that go right there, which are welded shut, so you can't open them. You can't open them or close them. Antique street lighting, which is not done in any other development, only on your developments downtown was that allowed. The antique stop signs, street signs, things like that. Serpentine sidewalk that runs through the Grand Prairie. You know, it's kind of snakes back and forth. Walking paths that we put through there. All of that stuff that we did, knowing that we're going to build a high caliber of home there. And when I did that, and we got all that approval done from the council and the planning department and engineering, then they allowed us to do that. The Holman family at that time said, Dan, said, what do we do with the South 80? And I told Frank, I said, look, Frank, what we need to do is we need to get that zone because I'm going to be selling these high caliber houses, and we need to be able to tell those people when they buy a piece of property what the intended use of that property is down there. So these people that are sitting here, along with a whole lot of other people, depended on me to present that plan, to do what I had promised them, and also what the city had given us at that time. So if we go back now and then tell these people invested all this money, I put over $10 million into the Grand Prairie with the planning that had gone on with the city and with you guys. So now it's kind of like we're almost somewhat. You guys haven't voted, so I'm not critical of that or anything, but we're almost feeling like we've been betrayed. That transition period or area up there, the Grand Prairie people have been so gracious. They've said, look, we understand that this is going to be shortened up. They said we can work with that. But to cut it back to just one little strip is just not adequate. Not from million-dollar houses to twin homes. Now, we're not being prejudiced or anything else like that. We're simply saying we're trying to build this type of development for people that come into the Sioux Falls area that want a very nice home and neighborhood. Clint's proposal is to build a very nice neighborhood. I agree with that. But it's simply we need more transition. Going back to the Holman property again on the South 80, Frank wanted that to be all Grand Prairie clear down to 85th Street. I told Frank, I said, we can't do that. I said, that's going to be commercial down there. We got South Dakota 100 that runs through there. We got 85th Street on the south. We got Minnesota on the west. I said, we're going to have to transition into commercial. I advised him to do that. I also advised these people that that was going to happen when we sold those houses to them. So I guess what I'm asking for, and I'm really pleading with you, is that I've got so much money involved with this. I've promised so many people, and we're asking you to ask Clint to go back to the drawing board, and we will work with him. I'll guarantee you that. This plan right here that Eric has proposed is basically splitting the difference. Craig Lloyd has been so gracious with us on the office to say, all right, Danny says, I understand what's going on here, says, we'll work with you. Can't appreciate him more than anything for that. But if you guys approve this tonight as it stands, it's just that small piece of office. It's that small sliver of RS2, which Clint has said he's coming back in for Twin Homes Wednesday night. We're just asking you to please either deny this or defer it and send us back, kind of like those kids that were sitting here earlier that said that peace and stuff like that. That's what you need to do. You need to say, children, go back home and work this out. When my kids get in trouble, I tell them, I say, go to the bedroom. I said, and you guys work it out. Okay? That's what I'm asking for.
Mr. Lemmy, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Honorable Mayor Uther, council members, I'm Doyle Stern, and I thank you for a few minutes tonight of your time. I purposely reduced my presentation by 3 minutes, so if you get home and see the end of the big game, you can give me some credit for that. My wife Arlene and myself built a villa home in Grand Prairie 4 years ago. And if your home is like my home, she built it, and I get to live there. But we picked Grand Prairie after living 4 years in the country on 17 acres, and you know the amount of work it takes to move the snow and mow the grass. And so we looked around Sioux Falls, and we really liked what we saw at Grand Prairie. We liked the amenities, but what really caught our attention was a plan that was put in place by Mr. Dan Lemmy with the Holman family. You as a council approved it, the planning and zoning approved it, and it's a great plan. It's been working very well for 4 years, and it's designed to work very well into the future. When we heard about this proposed change and some of the things that we might be living next to, I got to thinking, how would you like to live right next to a gas station or a used car lot when you had been promised that there is a plan in place that you shouldn't have to worry about that? I think tonight there is more at stake than just a stroke of the pen to approve or deny a rezoning request. I think there's a lot at stake. There's a credibility of all the parties involved, there's a trustworthiness of all the parties involved, and the integrity of all the parties involved. There's many people that are affected by this. You have a developer who still has some lots that need to be sold. You have the individuals, the homeowners that live in Grand Prairie, and many of them are here tonight. They're being affected. You have people that have bought a lot in Grand Prairie and getting ready to buy or build, and you have contractors that have purchased lots and at some point in time will be building. I personally am placing my faith and trust in you as a council, that as you look at this proposal, you feel like I do, that it is totally wrong. What is in place is working, and to change it to the drastic degree that it's being changed, you got to know in your heart that it's not right. We are willing to work with the developer. He has told told us that he would like to be a good neighbor. We would like to be good neighbors too. I think we can come to some sort of a compromise, but I would hope and pray tonight that you either deny this request totally or at least defer it to another meeting. Thank you.
Doyle, thank you. Is there anyone else who wanted to speak to this item? Welcome.
Is it possible to get that slide back up there? This one. Hi, I'm Eric Severson. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I want to make one point that I think hasn't been made, and I think it's very important. When you look up at the graph up there and you see the lots and the number of lots that are directly bordering the property, I think the first thought is that all these folks are probably here because they live right next to it and they don't want to see that happen. And that's actually not true. And the reason that you know that and I know that is that because most of those lots are actually still undeveloped. And I think that's the real consideration, and that's why really we're all here. Is, you know, we have a planned community where we have shared facilities that we all are a part of. We have a homeowner association that covers those, and our worry is that by making some drastic changes that are outside of the plans that were already in place, that we're going to stunt the growth of the Grand Prairie, and in doing that, of course, the growth that we're stunting is going to stop not only those lots from being developed, but also lots internally being developed. And we've seen our neighborhood make some very nice progress, and we'd like to see that progress continue. We're also very excited to have the Signature development to the south, and we want to see that develop too. It sounds like a great development. I think it'll fit in perfectly. We just want to make sure that there's proper transitions in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Severson. Thank you. Is there anyone else who wanted to speak to this item? Very good. Welcome.
Welcome, Mayor Huther and Council. My name's Troy Stallings. I live in the Grand Prairie. I'm also a builder. My biggest thing, obviously, as you've heard tonight, is the transition, but we've also heard in the neighborhood meetings that that Clint can't make it work unless he can do twin homes or duplexes. My thought as a builder, if it's that tight that you can't have single-family homes as a buffer, there's a piece of property that Lloyd has just in the southwest, catty corner across, that's 150 acres that you could do just about anything you want on. If it's that tight of a profit margin to have just a little bit more of a buffer, I think it's something to take. He needs to take a look at. But I think in our development, a transition, a little bit larger transition, is something that we'd like to see, and then let him build the rest of the place out the way he wants to, and good luck. Thank you.
Troy, thank you. Mr. Lloyd, welcome.
Craig Lloyd Company is 3130 West 57th Street. I just want to clarify a couple things, and a couple things have been said tonight that we could not bring the new drawing that we had for the office on the northwest corner of the development next to the commercial because I guess I was told I couldn't do it. Anyway, we did extend that to 300 feet. I just wanted to have that on the record. Even though we can't bring it, I want the Grand Prairie to understand that. Also, you can't deny that Harlem has done a fantastic job with the development of Grand Prairie, and we respect that. We do have some economic items that Clint, he's the expert on townhouses and that sort of thing. The reason we chose this piece of land, other than the one that Mr. Stalling was talking about, is that's not sewerable, and this is sewerable. So if it was that easy, we probably would have just picked up our dog clothes and gone down across the street. The other part of it is that the previous plan had about 17 acres available for a large box retail. And if I knew that there wouldn't have been any objections to a Walmart, we probably would have considered that. That they said that would have been fine with them. So we wanted to make a neighborhood commercial that we do better at than most. And the most you can make a neighborhood commercial depth is about 330 feet deep. to make the transition work and everything else work. So those are the three things we went to in our thought pattern. Thank you.
Mr. Light, thank you. Welcome. And folks, too, I know the council appreciates the different stuff that is being discussed versus just the same topic, so we really appreciate that as well. Sir, welcome.
Sure, Mr. Mayor, Council. Paul Weckman, live there, and matter of fact, I live right next to the proposed townhomes change. My concern is completely different than everybody else's. When you look at everything here, it's all 2D, it's not 3D. That property adjacent to mine actually is about 20 feet higher than my backyard that would abut up to their property. So what I'm looking at is, I'm concerned about water flowage. Is additional water going to be coming down into my basement and into my property and have damages along with the other 7 properties that are empty there? With the proposed changes, I'm not a civil engineer, but I see that there probably will be less green space, and when you have apartments and that you have more parking spots. Hopefully the city and the engineers here working have made a decision, and maybe they haven't done an impact study yet on this, with this change, how much flow of additional water there could be, and potentially backing up into the city's watershed. There is a water basin a half a mile to the east. Can it handle that additional water coming in when we have a 5-year or 100-year rain? And if it can't, it's going to back up. Well, it's going to go where the lowest, basically, elevation is, and that would be my backyard and the other 7 properties along that edge. It's the natural drainage, but right now is dry because we're in a drought. But there is cattails back in there, and I just want to make sure before you make a decision that the city has all the information, and is an impact study been done on that. And I ask you either not to go with this proposal or defer until you could assure me and the other potential 7 owners down the way that they're not going to jeopardize their property being flooded. Thank you.
Paul, thank you. Well, we really thank you for being here tonight. Council, are there any questions that you would have or any motions tonight? Yes, Councilor Brown.
I have a couple questions for Mr. Ackerman. Mr. Ackerman, the yellow section, the RS2 area, those twin homes, who would they be marketed to? Who do you anticipate would be living in these properties?
Most of the excuse me. Most of the individuals that we'll be marketing to is what I consider more of a second-tier market. These are going to be young professionals, young married professionals, widowed, divorced, retirees, and just a couple of retirees. The community that we're creating is not necessarily for the entry-level buyer with a lot of kids, and this is a stepping stone. This is an end product for a lot of the people that would be living in the transitional area, the RS2, and also the RD across the street.
And the multifamily, what is the market for those?
We are going for a little higher end end user in the multifamily. So there's going to be families, individuals, pretty much your typical renters in that area. We have 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms, so we get a wide mix of residents. We have a development on the west side of Sioux Falls called West Briar, and it's basically the same thing. We've just dialed this one up a little bit to, hopefully blend in with the neighborhood a little better. And what we're getting out there for renters is we're getting a lot of individuals who do not want to own, and they would rather rent, so they're able to pick up and move. And so we're getting a lot of the older generation as well as young professionals too.
So that bordering the yellow area, RS2, how many units are we talking about?
Can you go back? Roughly, there's 28 units total,
Okay.
if we get the twin home conditional use permit.
So 14
Structures, correct.
Okay.
Yes.
If that was single-family homes, how many structures would be there?
It would be less than that. I did not. I looked at it, but I don't remember the numbers.
Okay.
We'd probably lose a couple of lots, possibly.
And this would be maintained by an association in the twin homes?
Correct, correct. The twin homes and the townhouses all would be maintained by a separate association from the apartments, but yet maintained in the same manner. One comment I would like to make is, I truly feel that I was trying to make the appropriate transitions, and as you guys saw, and everybody here saw in the exhibits, there are a ton of exhibits where they don't have two lots of layering between properties. Most of them had just one layer of twin homes between the multifamily and the single family. And we actually are providing two different layers. We're going, which is RS2, which is currently single family with a conditional use permit for a twin home use, and then we go to RD, which is up to 4 units before we get to the multifamily. I mean, that's almost 100% more than a lot of the exhibits that we had out there tonight.
Councilor Edelman.
There was a question concerning the drainage. It's my understanding the back of these twin homes would be to the north side. And there was a question concerning the height. There are about 18 feet difference between the homes that are there to where your twin homes are. It's my understanding, something like that. What about the drainage?
Was the drainage issue in that area, or was it some other area?
Well, he questioned whether or not with the higher density of homes that you have here, the water coming down the back, is that going to be an issue? How are you addressing the drainage as you go further to the south? Where is that drainage going then? Is the city pond to the east there, I believe, capable of handling the street drainage and stuff that we have?
The capacities would be a question for my engineer, and he's not here tonight. But let me address the RS2 that backs up to Grand Prairie. Those are already graded to accommodate the drainage for those lots along there. So the first row of lots, which we're proposing twin homes, would drain to the center lot line and then drain down like you do in any typical development. If you have two lots backing each other, you drain down the property line. The rest of the development will drain to the east. Not all of it, probably 70% of it will drain to the RC area and then flow down through the city detention pond. The other stuff, which is probably more the C4 in the office, will drain to the south, and we'll have to create another detention pond down there. So I don't perceive it to be a problem. And before we get to that point, the engineers and the cities have to approve that, and I let them handle that.
Councilor Karski.
Thank you. How many apartments are we talking about?
We're proposing 172 units.
172? Okay.
Yep.
And the Townhome Association, would that require association dues, and would they be responsible for all the maintenance of the outside, the lawn care, et cetera?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And last question, if I may. Do we have firm plans? I mean, the comment was made, this could be changed, and in the future could be, from what you're proposing, somebody else could come in and build 4-story apartment complexes, and I don't believe you're proposing that, is that right?
No, what we're proposing, if we can have, if everything moves through and you so graciously vote for us, vote for approval, we plan to start middle of May on the project, and we have approval for the first half of the apartments, and I'll be started with the townhouses and twin homes at the same time. We'll probably start with about 20-some units the first year.
So you do have firm plans to begin this project almost immediately?
That is correct, yes.
Stuff on the north end of there. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Anderson, Jr.
Clint, I'm going to go back to the drainage again. In your plan, you've completely eliminated the RC right next to the office area, over by Minnesota Avenue there. So where are you looking at replacing that with? And what area, I guess, because that, you definitely put it in there for a reason.
The original RC is basically just the pie shape of the lot, and I guess I took it out of there just for simplicity, simpleness. That corner of that lot is not buildable anyway because it's not conducive to put a structure on there. So it's going to remain green space. If that's something that, I have to publicly acknowledge that we will not be building on the unbuildable portion of that. I'm acknowledging that tonight.
Thank you.
Councilor Rolfing.
I'm just wondering what would happen if we put about 3 from each side in a room and said, you guys aren't going to come out until you get this taken care of. What do you think would happen, Clint?
You know, I don't know. I guess how I looked at our compromise is that I looked at all the other transitions and what they're standardly doing.
Well, that wasn't my question. How how the rest of them.
I don't know how it would come out.
These people aren't real happy with one there, and that kind of thing, and you're not happy with not having enough apartment buildings, and they've drawn up a compromise here. Have you looked at this compromise that they've got up there, or the one that they came up with here with two sides of twin homes, and is that workable at all for you?
They're not. I don't believe they're proposing 2 sides of twin homes. I believe they're proposing single family.
Yeah.
In both
No,
areas.
they're doing twin homes on 2 sides of the road here. As I remember, there's a road there and two sides there. Then you've got big apartments there, and you've got the RD here,
But the RS2, if I understood correctly, and maybe I misunderstood, and they can clarify, but I was understanding that they were wanting single-family homes there.
No, I don't think so.
Mr. Lemmy, would you mind coming forward?
Yeah.
Please, thank you, Mr. Lemmy. Thank you. Sorry. Would you mind just clarifying this? It's called Springdale Edition Compromise Zoning Slide. Would you mind helping the City Council kind of understand what your thoughts were?
Okay,
Thank you.
that slide that's proposed right now, we feel is an extreme compromise on our side that we're willing to give into. So what we're saying is that what we originally had, what the current zoning is, Mike, if you've got that, if you could leave our slide up and then put the current zoning slide up. You can kind of see what the current zoning that we have right now is the larger RS2. What we're proposing is to make that smaller with single family up against the Grand Prairie, and then the possibility, I guess, of twin homes. Clint would need to go back to for conditional use permit on the other side of that for twin homes. That's if the neighbors agree. And then also, if you notice the blue, the office space.
Which he's already said he's gone to 300 feet on that, so that's
okay.
out.
But that was my issue, though, is that if you, let's say you approve right now what Clint has proposed, we would lose that as currently shown. So I think this is a very workable compromise.
So tell me what the big difference is. If you look at the design of these homes, the twin home and the fourplex, what's the big difference between having a set of twin homes on the backside of that and a set of fourplexes, a set of twin homes facing south and a set of fourplexes facing north?
It's basically what we're asking for is the single family homes backing up to Grand Prairie. One other thing that I needed to tell you is that I graded the home and family farm, that 80 acres to the south, with Frank's permission. We graded it for single-family homes back there. That's why there's that grade difference. There's a tremendous amount of history that goes along with this that a lot of people aren't aware of. But I paid for that myself. That's the planning that went into this development to the south.
See, that's something I had not heard that we were looking at anywhere of looking at the north half of that RS2 of looking at individual homes there. That's always been twin homes looking in there, from what I understood.
No, single family there.
The comments that I've gotten from the people there is that the twin homes, nice twin homes in there, was just fine.
Well, again, do you see the confusion here? If you were to vote tonight to approve this, how much uncertainty there is? So that's what I was asking for. Send us back to our room and have us work this out. That's all we're asking for.
Okay. Mr. Wolfing, additional questions?
Well, I just see that the people here are saying yes, and Clint's saying no.
Well, again, I'm the developer. These are the homeowners that live here.
Right,
so.
Mr. Lemmy, I'm just going to defer to the council now, if you don't mind.
Okay, excuse me.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
I'm wondering if we couldn't send these people back for a week and and bring them back here next week and see what kind of compromise they could come out with, or is that not a good idea?
Councilor Rolfing, are you making a motion to defer
I would
this
like to
item?
make that motion. Let's just see where it goes.
Councilor Rolfing has made a motion to defer item number 32. Is there a second?
I'll second. and
There
then
is a
comment.
second, and it was seconded by Councilor Erpenbach.
That's for 1 week.
It has to be 2 weeks. That's
Oh,
my comment.
okay.
Again,
2
going
weeks.
back to the item previous, we can't set it for next week. The deadline is already passed.
So, Councilor Rolfing, would you be...
I'll amend my motion for 2 weeks.
And I would
okay.
amend the second.
Very good. So Councilor Rolfing has made a motion to defer item number 32 for a period of 2 weeks from tonight. It was seconded by Councilor Erpenbach. Council, would anybody have any questions or comments? Yes, Councilor Jameson.
Thank you. I was at the last neighborhood meeting that these developer and the neighbors had. And the last I had heard was that the line was drawn in the sand. The developer had made as many changes as he thought he could, and the neighbors had stretched as far as they thought they could. Before we do the deferral, I would recommend that we consider their position. You know, they've worked hard. All of them have talked a lot about this. I just hate to see them go back to get nothing done. At the end of the day, somebody's got to make the decision. I think they've come to an impasse. Now, I certainly don't want to take that away from the developer or the applicant here. But if they'd like us to call the ball on this action, I think we need to do that because they're unable to do it. So if I could, I would really defer and request that the applicant understand what's about to happen here. And if they're willing to go back and meet with the neighbors, that they do that with the understanding that in 2 weeks we will make the final decision. So I'm just bringing that aware that it was a difficult meeting last time, and I'm not sure if they'll get anywhere again.
Councilor Jameson, thank you. Councilor Karski.
A question for Mr. Cooper, if I might. Mike, looking at this compromise, if we were to change all that to the RS2, they would still be able to go before the zoning and request that that be all zoned for twin homes, correct?
The Planning Commission meets this Wednesday night, and I would suggest that if we're deferring the zoning for 2 weeks, that we would also defer that item. I just want to make sure that we know exactly what we're working from in terms of a zoning plan.
Okay.
That would be my recommendation.
But they could, I mean, it's up to the planning to decide what's appropriate for here,
Right.
with the option of coming back to
Yes.
us. Okay.
And I would be happy to sit in on any compromise meeting if that would be appropriate within the next 2 weeks.
Mr. Ackerman, please come forward. Councilor Jameson has asked your opinion on this motion to defer, basically just to try to identify, is there any a sense on your part that you'd be willing to continue the dialogue on this topic?
I believe I'd be willing to continue the dialogue, but I would like to ask a couple questions. If it got denied tonight, when can we reapply? What is the time frame?
Mr. Cooper, would you mind just come forward? The question asked by Mr. Ackerman was that if the item were to be defeated by the council tonight, when or if could Mr. Ackerman reapply?
There's a 6-month waiting period unless you come in with a substantially different zoning request.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you.
Then I'd like to add one additional comment. Again, the property that how we're proposing the zoning, the RS2 right now is single-family home. We have to apply for a conditional use permit to get that. Then if you move to the other side of the road, it's RD, which we have to apply for a conditional use permit to get use of that for 4-unit buildings. So even with what they're proposing as a compromise, we are still abiding by that same rules within our new zoning. So they're going to have a chance to come to the council come to the Planning Commission to address that and view their point at that. the current zoning right now, allows for that. So, I mean, right now, that's what it can be. And that would give us time to have a dialogue, have another meeting before the Planning Commission.
Mr. Ackerman, thank you very much. Thank you. Well, Council, very good discussion. Yes, Councilor Aguilar, I'm
I have a
sorry.
question for
Please.
Director Cooper.
Ms. Cooper.
Okay, the copies that were made, there are scribbles on it as far as there's lines drawn and then arrows going both ways. Could you explain to me what this is?
Okay, we have an exhibit that shows the current zoning. We have a second exhibit that showed what Mr. Ackerman had proposed prior to tonight. Based on an exhibit that Mr. Ackerman provided us tonight, the proposed zoning would be changed further. And then you heard from the neighborhood that there's another compromise that they would like us to consider. So that's the reason that you have
Scribbles?
scribbles. We're planning by scribbles tonight.
Thank you.
Well, team, great job. Yes, Councilor Rolfing.
I'm sorry to maybe mess this up more, but Mike, the RD allows for twin homes also, doesn't it?
Yes, twin homes are allowed without a conditional use in RD.
On an RD. So if we passed what we got today and what we've got on the proposed zoning, that would allow for twin homes on both sides of the lot, of the street on the north,
Well,
all the
again,
way through.
if you look at the tan area, that's RD.
Right, so
That
they could twin homes there and in the RS2.
No, they could only put twin homes in RS2 with a conditional use permit.
Okay, they would have to get a conditional use
Yes.
permit for RS2, and then they could put the twin homes in the RD2.
So the reality is the compromise that is being discussed, the right-hand exhibit that says RS2 would be limited to single-family detached, and what's shown as RD would be twin homes as well as the townhome development. That's, I'm not trying to make this even more complicated than it is, but that's kind of the direction that I'm hearing the discussion going tonight.
The RS2 doesn't allow for twin homes,
It does only by conditional use permit.
only by conditional
Yes.
use permit, which they would have to get.
Public hearing. Yep.
Mr. Cooper, thank you very much. There has been a motion by Councilor Rolfing to defer this item for 2 weeks. It was seconded by Councilor Erpenbach. There is no further discussion. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Brown,
Yes.
Entenmann,
No.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Jamison,
Yes.
Karski,
No.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Aguilar,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
That is passed 6-2.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Erpenbach?
would it be appropriate to ask for a recess?
If it's appropriate for you, it's appropriate for me.
Thank you.
There has been, we've been asked to have a short recess. We'll recommence this meeting in 5 minutes, so that is 9:13. 9:13, we'll recommence the meeting. Thank you all for being here tonight. We appreciate it, and we'll be back in 5 minutes.
This is the first we heard about this town, so I just want to let you know. Okay. All right. Okay, we'll take a look at that.
Thank you.
any of these sculpture walk?
We're going to have to go to informational for too.
It was confusing because there were two different proposals. Really, then you want me to go through it, or are you going to start it to sit here? That was confusing.
Are you staying anyway?
No, I was going to go. Yes, I sure will.
Not a problem.
Not a problem. The sculpture walk, I'm not sure if I'm going to that. I told them
I'll send you an email.
There's pizza. Yes.
So you go station 2120 started. 8:23 it started.
Which is the reason for the scribbles.
Yeah. It's a new zoning term.
Well, the other item should go quick for us anyway. Is Russ?
Yep, he's here.
Okay. I was wondering.
See, this is what...
Yeah, that was your script. Yeah, that was your script.
That was my thing. I just wanted to give them a chance one more chance to talk, and in 2 weeks, we'll make the decision. I have no problem with that. I understand both sides, but if you're going to build homes like that...
He should have bought the property. If he graded the property, he should have.
Because he's making guarantees he couldn't...
He can't keep. No.
How do you keep things when we're changing zonings all over the place all the time? Whether it's residential or commercial, we're always looking at rezoning.
And those twin
for that
you got
need.
a developer like him.
Yeah.
You got Craig Lloyd doing the commercial development.
Well, you just look at the development they did north of what's the middle school out there, west end of town.
The council meeting will resume in 30 seconds.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome back. This is the City Council meeting of Monday, April 2nd. We just had a 5-minute delay. Right now, it's 9:13 p.m., and we will recommence the meeting. We are on item number 33.
Item number 33 is a second reading and ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at Southwestern Avenue and County Road 106 from the RS2 Residential District and the RC Recreation Conservation District to the RS2 Residential District and the RC Recreation Conservation District, petition number 2012-0210, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. The Planning Commission recommends approval.
This is a petition submitted on behalf of the Harrisburg School District to amend the zoning boundaries that were approved last year by the City Council. This is an area that's being proposed for both the middle school, elementary school, and open space. After the zoning plan was approved, the school district began working with their architects on a more specific layout of the footprint of the buildings, and the zoning boundaries didn't match up. So unfortunately, we thought we would have wanted to do this one administratively, but the extent of the changes, we thought we should bring it back for council action. So again, you can see the minor boundary adjustments that's being proposed with this, and the recommendation is for approval.
This is a second reading. Is there anybody who wanted to speak to this item?
Very good. Council, questions, comments, motions?
Move to approve Karski.
Second, Anderson.
Councilor Karski's made a motion to approve this item, seconded by Councilor Anderson Jr. Any comments? A roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Brown?
Yes.
Entman?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Item 34.
Item 34 is a second reading. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota rezoning property at east side of Ellis Road between 26th Street and 41st Street from the Roosevelt Park Planned Development District and the RD and RS2 residential districts to the RC Recreation Conservation District and the RS2 and RD residential districts. Petition number 2012-0116 and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. The Planning Commission recommends approval.
This is a petition by Ronning Enterprises to amend the zoning for Roosevelt Park Edition. It's primarily being driven by changes in the stormwater detention plan for this area. So again, the exhibit on the left shows existing zoning, and on the right shows proposed changes that would add RC areas for stormwater drainage and detention, as well as a minor modification of an RD and RS2 boundary. Recommendation is to approve this change.
Would anybody like to speak to this item? Council?
Move for approval, Anderson.
Second, Entman.
Councilor Anderson Jr. has made a motion to approve, seconded by Councilor Entman. Thank you. Councilor Karski.
Just a question, Mike. Is 32nd Street slated to go all the way across that?
Yes.
So it'll go through right where that RS2 and RD is?
The subdivision plan would show that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Council, if there's no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Brown?
Yes.
Entman?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Item 35.
Item 35 is a first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending Chapter 10 of the revised ordinances of the city dealing with the licensing and registration of bicycles.
Welcome.
Good evening. Greg Vandekamp, Sioux Falls Police Department. This is a simple ordinance request by repealing Section 10.3 of the ordinance relating to the registration of bicycles and also all of Article 2 of that ordinance. This is an ordinance that has been obsolete for some time. In the 24 years I've been with this department, I don't think I've ever enforced the bike registration ordinance. We recognized the need for this change some time ago with the recent recodification process. Finance office kind of knocked on our door, said, can we rid ourselves of an ordinance that we really don't enforce? We agree. We are moving this towards a voluntary program, moving it from the finance office. We will be working this program from the police department where we will actually be doing registration of bicycles on a voluntary basis, hoping to get the numbers up considerably. We do run into a whole lot of found bikes throughout the year, a very, very small fraction of which are returned to their owners. Our hopes is through this change the ordinance and the program being brought to us that we can change that significantly.
Craig, very good. Thank you so much. Would anybody like to set the date of hearing and second reading for Monday, April 9th at 7 p.m. for this item?
So moved, Erpenbach.
Second, Entman.
Councilor Brooks made that motion, seconded by Councilor Entman. If there is no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Brown?
Yes.
Entman?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Item 36.
Item 36 is a first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the revised ordinances of the city by revising Chapter 19, Article 8, Family Daycare Homes.
Jill Franken, Health Director for Sioux Falls Health Department. Item 36 includes proposed revisions to Family Daycare Ordinance. To give you a brief history, the ordinance has been in place since 2004, was revised in 2008, and most recently, within the last year, April of 2011, as a matter of fact, the inspection ordinance was added to this section in Chapter 19, which included, along with that, several items that we did within our department to really update our policies and procedures around complaint tracking, complaint processing, violation, suspension, and revocation procedures, public notice of citation, suspension, and revocations. We also then provided some enhancements, fairly significant enhancements to our website, posting of enforcement actions. We increased the searchability of the website to allow citizens of our community to be able to search for actions taken on behalf of family daycare ordinances, and we increased educational materials to parents. Lastly, we developed the proposed changes that are being addressed tonight, and those were vetted through the City Attorney's Office. They partnered with us along with Department of Social Services, State Daycare Quality Initiative Committee, daycare providers. We had a meeting with them the end of January. There were 27 providers there that provided input after hearing what are the proposed recommendations and ordinance changes. We also fielded numerous phone calls and email requests and thoughts brought forward by providers. We provided frequently asked questions and mailed out information to providers. I had a Public Services Committee meeting in February of 2012, and then most recently provided information at Informational Today. With that said, I'll turn it over to Alicia Kaluro, who will highlight the changes in the proposal.
Thank you, Council. I am Alicia Kaluro, Assistant Public Health Director. I will go through the major changes of the ordinance, and thank you for your patience to listen to our proposals a second time this evening. I'll try to be as concise as possible, knowing that this is the public notification. First of all, we are proposing changes to Section 19-120, the definition section. Those changes include family daycare home, that all of the parts of a property be considered part of the family daycare home for inspection purposes. We moved some language around regarding the number of children allowed from the home section to the provider section, so that it's actually the registration carrier who is ascribed the number of children. Registered helper versus substitute helper just clarified that planned care that's needed by the provider that they would need for purposes of meeting ratios or reimbursing someone for their services, that would be provided by a registered helper, and unplanned care, such as in emergencies, could be provided by a substitute provider or otherwise as noted in Section 19-128.2. We've added a new definition, visitor, who is a guest to the family daycare home that has minimal or incidental contact with the children and does not provide direct care. We'll revisit this new definition of the visitor a little later in the presentation as well. Section 19-122 registration. The bulk of the changes to this section have to do with the fees. As you know, the fees for family daycare are $15 for registration and also annually as well. Also, a $10 late fee is charged. This fee has not been increased since the ordinance has been put in place. We're proposing a two-tiered system. One is if the provider is state registered, that increase would be minimal, to just $25, but if they're not state registered, that they would be charged $125. Also, a late fee currently is $10. We're recommending to be $50. As we reviewed with you at Public Services Committee and Informational, there are a number of reasons why we're making this recommendation to you, and here are some of the items for your consideration. 75% of all of our complaints come to us regarding non-state registered providers. Also, the state registration does satisfy some of our registration requirements, so that process is more streamlined for providers and the department. We also have a MOU in place with the State Department of Social Services to share information, so we're continuing to develop a high level of collaboration with them. Also, the state registration provides additional oversight and standards that the city ordinance does not, including mandatory biannual inspections, reference checks, case management, and other coaching resources. So we're really proposing this tiered approach so that over time we would like to see more providers see state registration as valuable to their city registration, and currently we have 50% of our providers as state registered. We'd like to see that grow over time. We think that will add to the quality of daycare in Sioux Falls. Finally, the late fees. 40% of our registered providers unfortunately are late with their annual renewals. And so we would ask that the $10 fee be raised to $50 so that that will create somewhat of a deterrent, and that by January 1st, we have all of our daycares registered and in business in accordance with the ordinance. Section 19-123 is regarding liability insurance. This is a new recommendation. It's a new section of the ordinance. Currently, we were recommending $100,000. We know that there has been some concern by the council and citizens that this rate may be high, so we have taken into account your questions, and we will be working with the council before second reading to see if we can offer you some more information, perhaps on different levels of liability insurance that are available, as well as what that would mean for premiums and such. I will note just briefly that an example of $1 million premium with 8 children at $600 a year is about $1.44 per child per week, just as an example. 19-125 is very straightforward. It just further clarifies that all helpers employed by a provider need to be registered. 19-128.2, substitute providers. This was not originally a section of the ordinance that we were proposing to change, but we have had a lot of feedback from providers, and I believe the council has as well, as to what that section means and if it regulates visitors. So as I mentioned earlier, we've further defined visitors, and we're recommending that visitors be under the supervision of the daycare provider. There are numerous visitors in a daycare home, probably hundreds a day that the health department would just not really have the capacity to regulate, such as mothers who come to breastfeed, delivery personnel, maintenance personnel, neighbors who like to visit with the daycare provider. These are all concerns that the providers brought to us, so we are identifying a definition of visitor and that the visitors would be under the supervision of the daycare provider. Who we do regulate are persons who reside or will be present on a regular basis and those who provide direct care to children. Section 19-128.4 and 19-132 are endorsements of additional parental involvement in the daycare home. One is the reporting of incidents. We do require that if there is a change in circumstance in a daycare home, that the department be notified. We're extending that language to include daycare parents. We're also adding that if a provider receives a notice of violation or a citation, that the daycare provider must notify the parents as well. And also that the homes be open to daycare parents to inspect during normal business hours, just as they are by enforcement officials. Section 19-133. The significant change to this section is extending the 90-day suspension to another 90 days, up to 1 year. This is because many of our investigations are not completed within 90 days if we're cooperating with another agency. And so 90 days, we don't always have a determination on a case. But we also recognize that that can't go on forever and recommend that that be a maximum of 1 year and also appealable by the provider. Time frame and reapplication after revocation. With this, we're recommending that a revocation stand for 1 year. This is in line with the state policy on daycare revocations. And that if a provider would like to reapply, that they offer the department and the community a mitigation plan for what caused the revocation, as well as be subject to reasonable conditions. For instance, if the health department were to require additional training. Other minor revisions include removing the provision to require TB testing, adding birth dates to the master list, and just some very minor changes to training that allow for the department to have flexibility in what they accept. So again, briefly, the intent to have a tiered fee schedule that recognizes and encourages state registration, assures that providers carry liability insurance, Further define helpers, and that if they are employed, they must be registered. Strengthen the requirements for providers to notify parents of changes in circumstances or enforcement action. Require that the home must be open to unannounced inspections by daycare parents, and then also time frame and conditions for reapplication after a registration revocation. Oh, my apologies. So Section 19123, insurance, I said $100,000. Our original recommendation was $1 million. We did bring forward information on a $500,000 minimum that could potentially decrease a premium for a provider. However, we will go back and do a little bit more homework on that and see what other levels are available in our community and what the potential savings could be for providers.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, this is a first reading. Yes, Councilor Entman.
I do have a question.
Please.
Is it appropriate? Can you, we talk about state registration and then local registration. Can you tell me why don't we just make it mandatory that everybody signs up or registers with the state? Since it seems like they have some different reference checks and a number of things that they require that we're trying to kind of, in a way, copy.
Sure. That is certainly a policy decision that could be considered, and other communities in South Dakota we know have considered that, including Elk Point. I think that's probably something we may want to work with the state, that we see our proposal as a tiered approach, that it's not a mandate, but it's an encouragement, and over time we hope to grow that. One thing to consider is that I believe, and I don't know if my figures are exactly right, there are about 900 providers in the state of South Dakota, and 400 of them are in Sioux Falls. So it would be quite a shift for the state to absorb greater than 200 providers, just kind of with the flip of a switch. So we do see the value of state registration. We are a strong partner with them. So our initial recommendation is that we do all that we can to encourage that, but know that that is a consideration that could be made, and it has been made in other communities.
Thank you.
If I might add to that as well, because of our MOU, we've really developed a really strong partnership with the state, and right now we see that we have two sets of expertise and ability, us at the local level, along with your ability as policymakers to influence family daycare regulation within the city, and that with their approach and what they do and what we have in place, it really is working. Hopefully it'll work really well if we can get more folks to be state registered, more of our family daycare providers at this time. But certainly we'll continue to work towards even more efficiencies in the future, if that were in the best interest of the community from our perspective.
Council, would anybody like to set a hearing for a second reading on Monday, April 9th at 7 p.m. for this item?
So moved, Brown.
Second, Urbanbach.
Councilor Brown's made that motion, seconded by Councilor Urbanbach. Is there any further discussion on the first reading? Councilor Anderson, Jr.
Yes. After the concerns brought up by Councilman Karski on the insurance section, at this time, can I make an amended motion on this, or is this something where I can ask where the insurance can be removed and put back into public services so we can take a look at what format or what form of insurance we should be requiring? Because just from the conversation we had during the informational, liability insurance may not protect these businesses.
Mr. Mayor.
So I guess I'm just asking for what the right
Councilor
procedure
Urbanbach?
is.
It would be my understanding that second reading would be the appropriate place, but if I'm hearing staff correctly, they're going to be working with council members between now and second reading to work through those issues. So second reading would be the appropriate time to make any amendments.
Okay.
Joan, Alicia, do you feel confident that you'll be able to answer Councilor Anderson Jr.'s questions by the time the second reading were to come?
Yes, we took many notes from this afternoon, so we'll be reaching out during this week to look at some options and bring some thoughts forward in regards to the liability coverage.
Thank you.
And Councilor Urbanbach, thank you for the help as well. Appreciate it.
Welty, we've got a motion out there to set that second reading for April 9th at 7 p.m. It has been seconded. If we could have a roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Brown?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Thank you. That is passed 8-0. Item number 37.
Item number 37 is a resolution approving sculptures on city property.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, and the viewing citizens. My name is Russ Sorensen, representing the city planning staff this evening. Along with me this evening is Jim Clark with Sculpture Walk, SMG Orpheum Theater Management Company, Rick Huffman, as well as we had two members of our Orpheum Theater Board, Baron Wolfgang and Dee Knudsen, were here earlier this evening. On behalf of the Orpheum Theater Board, tonight we seek your support for the resolution for the 2012 Orpheum Theater Sculpture Placement Program. This program is in its third year. We're looking at 4 sculptures and 1 alternate that have been reviewed and approved by the Sculpture Walk program and recommended by the Orpheum Theater Board and the Visual Arts Commission. The sculptures are placed on courtside pedestals within the courtyard area of the Orpheum Theater. And we started out with 36 sculptures that were reviewed, and essentially we narrowed it down to 4 with an alternative. And those include the Dance of Life, you see before you on your screens. It's a bronze sculpture, a portrait of a bird, which is a steel, a stucco, and a concrete sculpture. Samurai Dancer is a steel sculpture, and Kneeling Boy, it's a bronze sculpture. The alternate sculpture is known as Skydiver, and it depicts a skydiver, which is a very tall sculpture. The program simply enhances the beauty of our Orpheum Theater and the culture of our downtown area for all citizens to enjoy. Should also note that the Orpheum Theater will be celebrating their centennial event in 2013. And your favorable support and action is requested for this year's program. That concludes our presentation, unless there are questions. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Erpenbach.
Dave, can you go back to the bird? With that, I would move approval.
Second, Brown.
Okay. There's been a motion to approve by Councilor Buck, seconded by Councilor Brown. If there's no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Brown?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Item 38.
Item 38 is a resolution of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, approving the placement of sculptures on public property for an internationally recognized visual arts program known as Sculpture Walk Sioux Falls 2012.
Again, Russ Sorensen with the City Planning Office. Also with me is Jim Clark, Executive Director of the Sculpture Walk. The resolution for this evening is to foster the approval of the 9th year of Sculpture Walk. We've grown from 34 sculptures in 2004 to 56 sculptures for 2012 that are proposed. In the 8.5 years of the Sculpture Walk program, 396 sculptures have been displayed and 119 have been sold in our community. A tremendous economic impact for our downtown area and in our community. We started out with 139 entries and we narrowed it down to 56 this year. It is an international program whereby we have 2 countries, Nigeria and Canada, involved, and there are also 20 states represented in this year's Sculpture Walk. There are over 100 businesses and individuals that contribute annually to the financial strength of Sculpture Walk program, and we have over 50 volunteers to make this program a continued success. This program is significant in that it helps create that first impression for downtown visitors by bringing a large number of sculptures to our downtown area for outdoor display. It enhances the beauty and the culture of our downtown area for all citizens to enjoy. The public votes for the favorite sculpture deemed the People's Choice Award, and that sculpture is purchased then by the city. The Sculpture Walk, city staff, the ADA Review Advisory Board, and the Public Works, Engineering, and Risk Management, along with the Visual Arts Commission, have reviewed the 56 sculptures and wholeheartedly recommend approval of this year's program to you. If approved this evening by resolution, that work schedule, you'll see on April 14th, the old sculptures going down, and on May 5th, the new sculpture placements would be installed. That concludes our report, unless there are questions.
Russ, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Councilor Brown.
Second, Rolfing.
Thank you, Councilor Rolfing, for the second as well. If there is no further discussion, yes, Councilor Brown, please.
Once again, I want to recognize Jim Clark, who put so many hours into this, and there is not a day in Sioux Falls where people are not walking by these sculptures and enjoying them, and I've seen him out there on Saturday morning scrubbing them and cleaning them, and we really appreciate what you do, Jim. Thank you.
Great job, Councilor Brown. Well, with no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Brown?
Yes.
Entman?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Thank you. That is passed 8-0. Item 39.
Item 39 is a report of the March 23rd, 2012 Notice of Transfers of Appropriations within major organizational units.
Thank you.
Move adjournment.
Second, Erpenbach.
Thank you very much. There's been a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting, seconded by Councilor Urbanbach. If there's no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Brown?
Yes.
Entman?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Thank you. That is passed 8-0. City of Sioux Falls, your city council definitely worked hard again tonight. Thank you so much. Make it a great, great evening. This meeting is adjourned.